Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 6 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is the 1993 Aurora, Colorado shooting. Now, before I get into this episode, I'm going to do my usual stuff. So as far as this episode goes, it's pretty dark. It's a true crime, which is always a little bit tougher for people to swallow, rather than a legend or something a little bit more abstract. So if you're not comfortable with shootings, or if that's something that sort of makes you nauseous or sick or anything like that, please come back next week. I'm sure I will have something for you next week. Go back in previous episodes if you haven't listened to all of those. We are in Season 3, so there's a bunch that you possibly have missed. The other thing is that this is yet another fan-submitted episode. Thank you to _the smell of cats _ on Instagram for suggesting this idea. They suggested it to me maybe a couple weeks ago. And I had just done a bunch of fan episodes, and I kind of wanted to go back to stuff that I was more like, yeah, I'm passionate about doing this one or whatever. I don't know why. And then I got back to this one because I did do research initially when they sent it to me, and I was really intrigued, but I was like, I already have something else planned for the next couple weeks, and so I'm just going to wait until I feel like I'm in like a little bit of a rut. And that happened this week. I was like, I don't really know what to do, and I decided that this was the week to do it. So for my younger listeners, this is a real thing that happened. I'm not trying to make light of any situation or make fun of it. This is relatively recent. And it is a tragedy, and it's extremely sad, and we should treat it as such. So I don't want this to be taken as like he's just using this, blah, 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 to like make fun of people. Like, no, this is a tragedy that happened. It's just kind of an interesting story, especially with the legal proceedings that happened after. I don't normally talk about those in my podcast episodes, but you'll see why. It's just some interesting tidbits that kind of get tossed in there at the end. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Thanks again to _ the smell of cats _ So the shooting happened on December 14th, 1993 at a Chuck E. Cheese's in Aurora, Colorado. 4 employees died, and a 5th employee was seriously injured. The perpetrator was a man named Nathan Dunlap, age 19, and this does come into play later. I'm not just saying this to like perpetuate anything or whatever, not trying to perpetuate stereotypes or anything. He was a black man, but this does come into play later. It is important, so I'm not just saying that as like he was black, like not really trying to be problematic or start shit here. That's important to the story, otherwise I wouldn't include it. He was supposedly extremely angered after being fired 5 months prior to the shooting. And he sought revenge through the shooting as a way of like getting back at them for firing him. A bunch of his fellow employees had heard him say he was going to get back at them somehow, and he had suffered from some, let's say, mental issues in the past and some anger issues. He'd been arrested a lot as a teenager, and so he had a lot of built up stuff that was going on in there. He entered the restaurant at about 9 p.m. He ordered a ham and cheese sandwich and then played an arcade game. He hid in the restroom at around 9:50 p.m. and he exited the bathroom after they closed at 10 p.m., but he exited around 10:05 p.m. So like the Chuck E. Cheese is closed at 10. He hid in the bathroom so that when they closed, he could be in I guess you would call it like the restaurant. What is it? It's not a restaurant. The arcade, but it's also not an arcade. The Chuck E. Cheese's. It's its own. It's like a Dave and Buster's, but for children, right? Isn't that what it is? Do those still exist? I'm getting off topic here. They closed at 10, and then he left at like 10:05 with a I believe God, I struggled with this the last time I was reading about guns in my like Halloween crimes episode. It says .25, which I think is like a 25 caliber semi-automatic pistol. If I'm incorrect about that, please flame me. Like, please educate me. I don't understand guns, and I don't understand how they're, like, written out. So I'm really sorry if that's not right. Acting like I didn't grow up, like, in a house with weapons. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, what I think to be a 25 caliber semi-automatic pistol. He exited the bathroom. His first shot was at Sylvia Cromwell, who was age 19, and he shot her through the right ear while she was cleaning the salad bar. Next, he shot Ben Grant, who was age 17, and he shot him near his left eye while he was vacuuming the floor of the arcade area. Colleen O'Connor heard the gunshots and saw him. She was age 17. She got down on her knees and begged for her life, and then he shot her through the top of the head, killing her pretty much instantly. Bobby Stevens, age 20, was outside taking a smoke break, and he heard the 3 gunshots and just assumed that they were balloons popping nearby from, like, kids or a party or something like that. And that sounds like a crazy thing. Like, what do you mean you don't know gunshots? But, like, I don't know. I live in New York, and if you hear noise in the street, you don't look. You're just like, whatever. It's probably a balloon, or it's probably, like, a muffler popping or a car going by. Like, it's not a gunshot. And even if it is, you're probably like, oh God, there was a gunshot. That sucks. And you, like, roll over. Like, it's not your business. And so even if he thought that they were actually gunshots, I doubt that he would have thought that they would be coming from inside the Chuck E. Cheese since it had closed. He probably thought it was coming from, like, the apartment complex nearby. So he just, like, went back inside after his smoke break and was like, chill. Steven started to unload the utensils into the dishwasher for the night, and Dunlap shot Stevens through the jaw. He dropped to the floor and immediately played dead, which is a very smart choice, but he was still alive. And then Dunlap forced Marge Kohlberg, age 50, to open the safe that was in the back office. She was the store manager, but it's important to note that she was not the person that fired him. She was not the manager that removed him from his employment. That was someone else who was not on the premises during the entire shooting. After she opened the safe, she begged for her life, and he shot her in the ear. And as he started to unload the safe, he saw her kind of like moving around a little bit. So then he shot her again through her other ear to make sure that she was dead. And then I wrote, note, the manager that fired him was not there. They weren't present the entire evening. So he killed four people, brutally maimed a fifth. And none of them had anything to do with him getting fired. Even though that was the whole point of him going back, was to punish the people that fired him or get back at them. And they weren't there. So really smart choices from our friend, Mr. Dunlap. Just the thing to note about, before I continue, the thing to note about shooters like this from a psychological standpoint is that while it is premeditated to an extent, obviously, they don't just like have a gun on them and decide willy-nilly that they're going to do it. It's not heavily planned, usually. There have been cases of like snipers, and that's a little bit more, I would say, premeditated, planned. Like, you have to figure out where you're going to set up and how you're going to see everybody and is the person you're looking for, whatever. The fact that he didn't even like think to figure out what shift his like boss that fired him was going to be working there for the shooting seems like it was more of a rash decision. It was more fueled by like anger and I would say like even a little bit of like pain and sadness and whatever, mostly anger. Than it was like an actual let me get back at them. It was more about his own like inner rage. So like when I say he's not making smart choices, he isn't. He isn't making smart choices. Like he's just not. Like that's a fact that he isn't making smart choices here. Because if he was, he wouldn't be showing up to this location at this time and not even see his boss. He's acting on emotion. So I'm not saying that to like make him feel, he's still alive. Like I'm not saying that to like make him feel bad in the event that he ever hears this or whatever, or like rat on him, but like he's not really being the smartest little jelly bean now, is he? Stevens ended up escaping, not Dunlap, not our shooter, other guy that got shot in the jaw, played dead, Stevens. He ended up escaping out of the back of the Chuck E. Cheese, and he went to a nearby apartment complex called Mill Pond. He pounded on someone's door until they opened it, obviously, which, like, that'd be stressful to see a bloody, like, 20-year-old kid, like, I say kid, I'm like a year older, but, like, on your doorstep, just being like, hey, my jaw's fucking shot open and there's someone shooting people in Chuck E. Cheese. Like, what? Living next to a Chuck E. Cheese, I feel like you'd feel like you were safe from crime because that's like a kid's place. Whatever. At least I would feel that way. He told someone about the shooting and then, like, pretty much almost passed out. Stevens was then hospitalized at the Denver General Hospital, and he is the sole survivor of the shooting. Cromwell, who was the first girl that was shot, Sylvia Cromwell, was also sent to Denver General, and she was pronounced brain dead the next day from her injuries. I think like Aurora Medical Group was where she was. I forgot to write where she was transferred down, but she was transferred at some point in time and then pronounced brain dead the next day. Dunlap fled the scene with a bunch of stolen game tokens and $1,500 worth of cash. He was arrested at his mother's apartment about 12 hours later, and he ended up being found guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, robbery, and burglary in 1996. So he was apprehended. They know that they have the right guy. Like, it wasn't really that much of a, like, is he guilty? Like, it was him. You know what I mean? There's, like, I think there were cameras in the Chuck E. Cheese. Don't quote me on that. And so, like, we all knew it was him. There wasn't really any way. Like, he had the gun, he had bloody clothes, he had the game tokens, he had the money, he was at his mom's apartment. Stevens could identify, like, that was him. He got fired, like, a couple months prior. Like, it was very easy to figure out who it was and make sure that he was guilty. On May 17th, 1996, Dunlap was sentenced to death and an additional 108 years. Upon his sentencing, he swore in, like, an outburst of, like, rage. He just, like, swore up and down for 3 minutes straight. Just would not stop swearing for 3 minutes straight. That's a lot of anger in one individual. That's a lot of pent-up shit that he's got to get out, you know? And he got it out through shooting. Not saying that's the right way to do it. A pillow. Or, like, I don't know, going to a shooting range. Go to those break rooms. What are those called? It's like having a Wreck-It journal for those of you that are, like, from my generation. Of, like, the Wreck-It journals where, like, it says, like, write the name of someone that you don't like in here and then tear the page out and burn it, or, like, something like that. Or, like, on this page, you're supposed to just, like, punch holes in it, or, like, in this page, just scribble, or in this page, cut out little shapes, whatever. Like, you're supposed to wreck the journal. It's supposed to be broken when you're done. But there are rooms where I just discovered this, like, the other day. So for those of you that don't know, the reason that I'm on this topic, sorry for the tangents, my boyfriend went to Baldwin Wallace University, and they just did, like, a streaming thing of Spring Awakening, and they did, like, a very socially distanced video version of Spring Awakening, and it was really fun and lovely. But they did a scene in one of these, like, breaking rooms where they just put a bunch of items out, like broken items or, like, things that don't work anymore that people don't want, that they've donated or whatever, and you just smash shit in the room. Like, you just break, like, all this stuff, and they give you gloves and, like, protective gear, but, like, you just kind of, like, go in there and, like, break things. And I didn't know that was a thing, but that's a great way to get some anger management. You know, if you're really upset and you need to break things, that's a great way to do it. Become a potter. Is that what you call it? Like a potterer? Someone that makes clay plates? And a sculptor? Yeah, sure, a sculptor. You know, with the wheels, like in Ghost, and you make, like, the pots and the plates and stuff. You can do something like that. And then every time you make stuff, you just break it. And then you can just, like, remake stuff repeatedly, and then you're, like, self-sustaining. Yeah, that's a great plan. In my head, that works. I don't know if that's very fiscally efficient, but, you know, I don't think it's a frugal approach, but it probably works for you. Anyway, back to the episode. So sorry for my tangents today, everybody. Um, so he kept trying to say that his defense wasn't intelligent, and he wasn't a competent defense because he didn't present a lot of Dunlap's past traumas, like his child abuse, or the fact that his mother was extremely mentally ill the whole time that he was growing up, the fact that he's been arrested multiple times as a child, he has anger management problems, he's been diagnosed with a form of bipolar disorder. Like, he was like, my defense didn't bring any of these to the table, and that's why I'm gonna get executed. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving, or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. All of these things were overruled and repealed, and even though he kept trying to get people to listen to him or appeal the case or whatever, he was everyone was no. I don't know all the legal jargon, so apologies if I'm saying these things wrong, but basically they were we're not looking back at this case, you're gonna get executed. On May 1st, 2013, Judge William Sylvester announced his execution date was going to be in mid-August of 2013. Later, the Colorado governor, John Hickenlapper? Is that what I wrote? Hickenlapper? Is that his name? I guess I wrote Hickenlapper. I'm really sorry if I got that name wrong, but sometimes my handwriting isn't clean. So what it looks like I wrote is the Colorado governor John Hickenlapper or Hickenlasper or whatever. The governor, John the governor. He spared the execution. He made this big order that he wasn't going to execute Dunlap. This is where his ethnicity comes into play in a very interesting turn of events. So when it became public knowledge that he was going to be executed, the NAACP and other groups supporting minorities actually petitioned to get his life spared. And they sent a lot of notices and sort of pressured the governor. I say pressure not in a bad way, but sort of in he was kind of under fire a little bit from them, because the more of the death penalties were being doled out to Hispanics and Black people in Colorado specifically. All over the country, I'm sure that's the case. But specifically in Colorado, they were noticing it. So to see yet another Black man up for execution for a crime that, honestly, if you look back at history and you see white people doing these mass shootings, they don't get executed. They get life in prison. They don't normally get executed. Another thing to note, though, that is important about this is a lot of mass shooters don't make it out of their shooting alive. A lot of them commit suicide after, or they get caught by the police, and rather than being caught, they choose to kill themselves or take their own life. So to have a mass shooter in prison is already kind of an interesting thing because that's not as common. On top of that, I will say from my research that I've done, it's normally white people that do mass shootings. Normally, serial killers are typically cisgendered white men. Same with mass shooters, cisgendered white men. Mass shooters, kind of the demographic goes in and out because it can kind of take you in a moment of anger. It's typically men because of our natural tendencies towards rage and anger management issues. But so anyway, bringing that back, when you see white people that have killed more people in a shooting and have done more damage to multiple people, they don't get executed. Because for those of you that are living under a rock, a lot of stuff is coming up right now, and we're all having to do a lot to change our perspectives on the fact that we are a country that's built on sort of a systemically racist. It's built on racism, and a lot of us are trying to change that, and a lot of us aren't. But this is back in like the 90s when all this stuff was still not really talked about. I mean, like, what was it, like 30 years prior was the civil rights movement? But so the fact that he made this order of like, you know what, actually, we're not going to let him get executed because it's not fair was like really, really wonderful and like a big step. And he said the next governor, can make an order to go through with his execution, but that won't be me. And then in 2020, the death penalty in Colorado was actually repealed by Jared Polis, who's the new governor there. And so he changed his sentence and any other death roll. Death roll? Anyway, anyone that was on death row, he changed all of their sentences to life without parole. So our little friend Dunlap is like still alive in prison. He's still there and kicking and chilling just like any other white person would for the same crime. The reason that I thought this was a really interesting case is that there wasn't really a big legal proceeding of like, is this our culprit? Is it not? Like everybody knew. Like we all knew that it was him. Nobody had any doubts. It was more of like the defense trying to like plead insanity or like at least make the jury feel something for him or whatever. And even then it didn't really work because there are tons of people that get abused in their childhoods or have mental disorders that don't shoot up a Chuck E. Cheese. Like I've had some trauma with like physical and mental abuse. We all suffer mental abuse when we're children in varying different forms. And especially like as a ballet dancer, like I experienced a lot of very traumatizing things that people might not expect. And it sort of lingers with you, but like, I'm not about to go shoot up a Chuck E. Cheese or a Dave & Buster's, like, because they fired me. Like I was recently working, at a gym, and I quit the job because it just wasn't the right fit for me. But like, I'm not going to go back to that gym and shoot people up because it wasn't the right fit for me. Even if I was fired, I wouldn't go do that. So there's a way to handle things, and you can feel sorry for people like that. And obviously mental disorders have a super big influence on how people react and things like that to different stimuli. But he didn't seek help for his mental problems that he knew he had. So that's why 4 people are dead. The other thing that I found really interesting about it was that even though we all knew it was him and whatever, what's interesting is what happened afterwards with his death sentence. Because, yeah, when you look at it, like a lot more Black and Hispanic people have been executed in this country than white people. Now, the ones that we hear about as like a popular, a pop culture true crime sort of community, as I'm sure the people that listen to this are a part of, or at least dipped their toe in before, you hear about like Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. And I mean, Dahmer wasn't really like executed. He was like killed in prison, but you know what I mean? Like that sort of vibe. Those are the executions that we hear about. And you hear about what they ate on their last night in death row and, all that. Which is, interesting information. And if you'd like to hear an episode on stuff like that, I've actually been looking at doing an episode on like death row meals, like last meals of certain people, and giving my rating on them, which is really dark, even for me. If you want to hear that, let me know. But you don't really hear about all those Black people or the minority people that are getting executed all the time. You just don't hear about it. But it's happening so much more frequently, and it doesn't reach the newspapers or the news outlets at all. And it was something that I thought was very timely to talk about, in the sense of like, we all have a lot of work to do, and this is just yet another example of someone doing some good work to sort of try to right try to right a little bit of the wrongs that have been done previously in this country. He made sure that man didn't die. Does he deserve to be in prison? Absolutely. Does he deserve to die? It depends on who you ask. But if it was a white person, I'm sure that a lot of us would have a different opinion on whether or not he should die. So just something interesting to keep in mind and play around with in the back of your mind, and sort of notice as you look at news articles and things like that are happening. But that's pretty much it. That's all I have for this episode. I know that this isn't a particularly long one, but I thought it was timely and interesting, and I love doing fan requested episodes. I love hearing from you guys and hearing, oh, I want an episode about this, or I want an episode about this, and like, please don't be shy. Like, I love it. I absolutely love doing research because I didn't know about this shooting. I didn't know that it happened. I was born in 99, and this shooting kind of passed me by. I didn't hear about it. So it's one of those things that, like, it would be interesting to learn more about stuff that I might not be privy to, depending on what you guys know compared to me. Like, I only know so much. I know such a finite amount of information. And part of the reason I love doing this podcast is so that I can learn a lot more about topics that I'm sort of strangely, creepily interested in, So please let me know any of your future episodes ideas. Future episode ideas. Shout out again to _the_smell_with_cats_. Thank you so much for this episode idea. I had an absolute blast researching this and sort of then sitting with it and being like, wow, fascinating. And then doing more research about, death row penalties and the minority groups that are sort of targeted by that. And it just led to a lot of really good research to sort of educate myself. So I 100% recommend that all of you do the same. If you want to shoot me any sort of ideas on episodes, there are 2 ways that you can go about doing it. A, you can go to the website, whispersfrombelow.com. You can download episodes there, and there's a contact page that you can go to, and you can send me a message there. It goes right to my phone, and I'm a Gen Z, so I always have my phone on me at all times. And I'll usually respond to people that message me. I've had a couple people been like, hey, like, it's just really great to, like, see the website up and running, like, congrats. And I'm like, thanks. What's up? Like, I don't have much going on. So yeah, you can shoot me a message there. You can download episodes on the website. You can also get merch. We have some really cool merch there. There's bomber jackets, there's t-shirts, hats, pillowcases, blankets, stickers, all sorts of cool things. I mentioned it last week, but I finally have some things sussed out for the Patreon. So for those of you that are interested in something like that, please stay tuned. There will be a big announcement coming out soon about that, and I will let you all know what's going on with that. And I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to be really cool. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I skipped the second way that you can contact me. Got ahead of myself. Second way that you can contact me is via Instagram. The Instagram account is Whispers from Below. No underscores, no capitals, no spaces, no nothing. And it's pretty easy. You just DM me. And again, Gen Z, always got my phone. I will probably respond within a couple minutes, or at least later that day, if I happen to not have my phone on me for a period of time. But I'm pretty good about responding to people. That's how I got this message. And if you want to be featured in an episode, all you have to do is give me an episode idea that I do, and then I will tag you in the posts that I make about it. I talk about you on the podcast. I give you a shout out. And it's just super fun for both of us. I feel like I get to interact with you guys more. So again, send me ideas. I love hearing from you guys. It's super cool. Oh, I forgot to mention also on the website, you can sign up to be a member of the website, which just makes it easier for me to, keep track of how many of you guys really like the show and what you're interested in. And I can send little email blasts to you and be like, hey, blank's happening with the episode, or blah, 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 new merch out, whatever. I can show you some cool stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, thank you to Smell of Cats on Instagram for this awesome episode idea. And remember, our country's systemically racist, and we kind of need to do a lot to fix that. Mass shooters are super angry, dude, like all the time. It's really fucking wild. And we're still in a pandemic. Numbers are rising. Please stay safe. Please, please, please.